Hello, I'm Audrey Pitcher, and welcome to Assembly Update. We are here today with Assemblymember Jeffrey Dinowitz from the 81st District in the Bronx. Assemblyman, thank you for joining us today.
Wonderful to be back.
Now, there's been a lot going on recently, both at the national scale and the state scale, with the transition of power from the last presidential administration to this current one. And we've also seen some pretty significant observances happening in the state recently. For example, yesterday we just had a resolution to commemorate the International Holocaust Remembrance Day. Would you like to talk a bit about that?
Sure. Yes. Yesterday was actually the 80th anniversary of the liberation of the Auschwitz-Birkenau concentration camps by the Red Army, and that date, which is January 27th, is recognized as International Holocaust Remembrance Day. And it's important every year, every day actually, that we remember what happened, why it happened, and I would say it's more important than ever given the events of the past 15 months. I have to say that my family, my grandparents came over to the United States over 100 years ago in the 19-teens. And so they weren't in Europe during the Holocaust. So I'm here partially because of that. I mean, I don't know what would have happened if they came later, but I know that they didn't. And so I'm one of the fortunate ones. And one of the reasons I'm so proud to be an American is because of our country's great history in support of democracy, and I know how fortunate we are. And no matter who the president is, it doesn't change my feelings for the country. I mean, I happen to think this president is the most horrible president that we could have ever elected, but he was elected. Barely, but he was elected. And so he is going to be the president for the next, I don't know, 1,400 plus days, and we're going to have to live with it. But in the past 15 months, we've seen things that I never dreamed would happen. I never felt threatened as a Jewish person. I never felt, I know there was always anti-Semitism, but the way it's exploded since the attack by Hamas and their slaughter of 1,200 plus people and the kidnapping of hundreds of others, it's just amazing to me that the reaction in the world is against Israel and against Jewish people, and that is what is going on. For years, I always saw that most of the anti-Semitism in our country was coming from the far right, and it was. There's no question about it. And the deadly attack by a right-wing extremist at the Tree of Life Synagogue in Pittsburgh was just one example of that. But that was always there. What I never really thought about was the extraordinarily large degree of anti-Semitism on the far left, and it's been shown during the anti-Israel, pro-terrorist demonstrations that have taken place all over the country, all over the world, since October 7th, that this anti-Semitism, I guess, was there, and it just come up to the surface. To me, it's amazing how many people, how many young people, people in college, know nothing. I mean, they know so little. It's like those who are chanting, from the river to the sea, Palestine will be free, and they can't name the river or the sea. I mean, to me, those people some people would call them useful idiots, but in fact, many of them are very venal, and it's horrible. It's really horrible what's been going on. So when we think of Holocaust Remembrance Day, many people, especially some of the people who were there then, and there aren't so many that are left, many people are starting to wonder whether this could happen again. And we as a society, not only Jewish people, but all people, have to stand up and say, no, this could never happen again, and we must take every step in every way possible to make sure of that. And when I see on the news people in this country waving the flags of Hamas or Hezbollah, I say, they're not only, these are not people who are simply anti-Israel. They're pro-terrorists, they're anti-American, they want Americans to die because those organizations have killed Americans, and of course they want every Israeli to die. And it's just shocking to me that is happening. It's even more shocking that there are people that are here from other countries, maybe on a student visa, that are basically guests of our country that are waving those flags. I'm not saying everybody is, don't get me wrong, but there are people who are doing that. So I think it's more important than ever that we be not only vigilant, but that we kind of go on the political offensive to oppose the kind of stuff that's going on, and certainly make sure that young people are educated.
Definitely, definitely. We've definitely seen some worrying rises of anti-Semitism, both upstate and downstate, from what I've heard.
Yes, yes, unfortunately. And, you know, the fact that there are so many people who know so little kind of brings me to another issue, which we talked about, and that's some of the nominations that Trump has made for various cabinet positions. And one of them, this show is filmed but broadcast probably I don't know, at least a week later. So this particular hearing is going to be over by the time people see this. But tomorrow, which is January 29th, Wednesday, is going to be the hearing in the Senate for Trump's nomination for HHS, Health and Human Services Secretary. And he nominated RFK Jr., who is like the opposite of his father. I'm going to just, this is the shortest thing, I probably should memorize it. He said as recently as 2023, a little over a year ago, there is no vaccine that is safe and effective. This is what the guy who Trump wants to put in as the head of health policy for this country, an anti-vaxxer who says that there's no vaccine that's safe and effective. Tell that to Mitch McConnell, who's the former Senate majority and then minority leader, who's a polio survivor. I bet he wishes he had the polio vaccine. The polio vaccine, I think, came out maybe around the time I was born. Whatever it is, everybody gets the vaccine, or everybody should get it. And RFK Jr. is saying there's no vaccine that's safe and effective. By discouraging people from getting vaccinated or getting their children vaccinated, there could be a resurgence of diseases, sometimes deadly diseases such as polio, such as measles. And this guy has not only already caused damage, but him being in that position conceivably could lead to people dying, especially children dying, because you have somebody at the top who is essentially anti-science. But that seems to be where Trump is coming from. We should be the #1 country in the world in terms of vaccinations, and under this administration, that could change.
Yes, that's definitely very concerning. We've seen resurgences of measles in recent years in the United States, especially in some immigrant communities, just because it's affected them as well. And we've also seen it in the rise of the H5N1 bird flu strain that has people worried now.
People should be worried. You know, there are a fair number of people in this country, you can call them vaccine skeptics, I call them anti-vaxxers, but who advocate against vaccines. They don't want their children vaccinated, which is fine. You can't force somebody to get a vaccination. You can't keep them out of school if they're not vaccinated with the the list that's required. But the fact that there's a significant number of people who are opposed to science. I mean, do they think the Earth is flat? What do they think? There are a lot of conspiracy theorists, and it happens that RFK Jr., and I've read about him for many years. I've met him. I know him. He's a conspiracy theorist. He's put forth, other conspiracies as well. And people are always entitled to their opinions, but do we want them in charge? Do we want them, leading health policy? And he may do some good things as secretary, because I've read some of the other things he stands for, and I don't disagree with him on everything. But vaccines is such a basic thing. It was my legislation that passed, I believe, in 2019 that eliminated non-medical exemptions for the school vaccine requirements. I know there are a small strain of radicals out there who hate me because of that, but that's the way it goes, I guess. The fact is, I'm sure that law will either has and or will save lives, but it was my legislation that eliminated the non-medical, I'll call it, exemption. Some people call it a religious exemption. And that exemption was being abused for many years, as such that the percentage of kids who were vaccinated with the MMR vaccine, for example, that's measles, mumps, rubella, was going down, and that's very dangerous to other kids. If you feel strongly that you don't want your child vaccinated, you're entitled to that opinion, but don't endanger other people's children. That's where you draw the line. You don't want your kid to be forced to take the vaccine for school, and you want to homeschool your child. Well, be my guest, but don't endanger other kids. So RFK Jr., he could be very dangerous. We'll see what he actually does if he's confirmed. And as I said, when this is broadcast, he either will or will not have been confirmed. We'll know soon enough.
Yes, well, we can only hope for a positive outcome for the government and for the United States, and do what we can at the state level. So thank you very much for joining us today, Assembly Member. We look forward to talking to you again soon.
Okay, it's great to be here. I look forward to coming back as we get into the budget season.
Excellent.